I mean, it reminds me a bit of like a Kim Jong-un situation.
Yeah, it's very dictatory, very cult of personality.
Yeah, cult of personality. That's a great way to put it.
And it's crazy because just by that polarity, we automatically like and trust Furiosa once we realize what she's doing, you know, and with the wives, obviously, like we're just like, yeah, they need to get free. It's just
they need to be kidnapped. Here comes the theme.
Hello and welcome to the Critical Breakdown, the podcast where we start at the bottom of Rotten Tomatoes and work our way up to 100% fresh. I'm Mad Max.
Oh, cameo. I'm Scott, Rictus Scottus.
Scottiosa.
And today we're talking Mad Max Fury Road, rated 97% on Rotten Tomatoes. And rated number 1 of the 4 choices on the Critical Breakdown fan poll.
Yeah, and there was some good choices, right?
Yeah, this was I think I talked about it when we introduced them. These were all heavy hitters, and it's tough to see any of them fall. My vote was for Good Will Hunting, one of my all-time faves. But I'm happy Mad Max won because I don't think I had watched it since it had come out in theaters. Yeah, and it's one worth watching. You know? Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, I liked it. I watched it on. I haven't been feeling well lately. The break clowns might notice a little congestion on my end. Congestion. I'm like the first half of a Mucinex commercial, and so I woke up really early one day just because I wasn't doing so hot, and it was like 4 a.m. Couldn't go back to sleep. I was like, you know what? I'll watch Mad Max now, and that gets you going for the day.
I bet, man.
But no, it's really good. We'll get into it a little more, I think. You've been watching anything, Max? I've been watching stuff.
I have not been watching as much as I should because I'm always behind on stuff. But the past couple of weeks, I've dipped into the new Sabrina TV show.
How is it?
I enjoy it. I have some major gripes with the filming of it. So, you know me, I'm a camera geek. I like my visuals. I love cinematography. And they do this very stylistic thing of using lenses with a lot of swirl built in. The bokeh is very strong in it. Just some lens talk there. Yeah. But it literally, in some scenes, it looks really good. And in most scenes, it looks really bad. And it's like swirling the image so that only the center is in focus. And people use it in like dreamy situations. Yeah, okay. And when she walks, she exists, you know, in a high school. She's a half human, half witch, and she exists between two worlds. So they do it to show when she's more in the magic world of things. And it's just, they overdo it to the point where it's distracting. And I'm like 4 or 5 episodes in, and it's still like, oh God, every time it shows up that bad, I get angry. But I like the show. It's just, that's driving me nuts.
Yeah, like when you mentioned it's like a dream sequence, that I can picture, but I wasn't sure if this was something that like the naked eye without looking for it.
Yeah, you definitely can notice it.
Would be able to see and would know what it was happening.
Because Jody noticed it too. And from what I've read, the guy who directed the first couple episodes also directed a lot of the show that you and Jody like. Riverdale. And he used that lens apparently a little bit too much in Riverdale, but it's probably very, used much less still than it would be in Sabrina. So I don't know.
Yeah, I can't remember. I mean, yeah, I am a big Riverdale fan, but I have not, I can't think of any filming gripes like that stand out to me.
I mean, it's it's like the motion thing on TVs, that fast motion, the hertz, where once you know about it, you can't unsee it. So it's almost it's almost
because we've done this before, and I'm pretty sure I have never noticed it. But one time we were watching, I think, The Departed, and you and Jody were like, oh my God, this is unwatchable. Yeah. And I was a little offended because it was a new TV.
Well, and I think the thing with that is that setting a lot of times is on for like live sports events. It looks really good on that. And so you would be more likely to watch something like a live sports event than we would. So that's where you might not notice it, honestly.
Because I'm a sports guy.
Yeah, you're a sports guy.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, you know what? The NBA season started.
There you go. Roll that beautiful beam footage.
Yeah, dude.
Have you really?
Yeah, of course I have. It's been good.
Do we need to give you your... No,
I'm not going to get on a soapbox. I'm not going to wax poetic. I haven't been watching as much as last year, not because I'm not into it, but just because like the last couple of years I've been fully erect for it. Mm-hmm. And so now I'm in a bit of a refractory period where as the season really gets rolling, usually around Christmas, that's a good time to really start getting into it because they have some marquee games on Christmas. So yeah, it's been a fun season. A lot of good storylines. There's a good trade saga with Jimmy Butler of the Minnesota Timberwolves, where he's like, I don't want to play here. And the coach is like, I don't care. But now he's like choosing to sit out games and the coach doesn't know when he's going to play. Huh. It's really fun. So that's the thing about the NBA season. It's still drama, you know?
You love your drama.
I do. Speaking of dramas.
I know what you got. Hit us with it. Yeah.
Well, you hit me with it.
Well, I mean, I know what you're going to kind of talk about, I'm guessing, with drama.
Yeah. I watched... it came out early this year. You Were Never Really Here.
That's not what I thought you were going to say, but hey, that works.
The Joaquin Phoenix-led movie. I believe it was, who was the director? I can't remember the name of the director now, but no, Joaquin Phoenix is really, it's his show. He plays a hitman, but it's a very grounded, I can't really say if it's realistic or not because I don't know what the life of a hitman is like, but it's very much supposed to be like, this is what the type of person who would be drawn to this line of work and how their life is. And it tries to be really clever with its editing and storytelling and have a lot of flashbacks and seemingly flash forwards. But it was a little distracting a bit. But then by the end of the movie, like the second half of the movie, I was really into the character. They developed him really well throughout. So by the time the ending came around, I was really into it. Whereas in the first half, I was like, I'm not even sure if I'll finish this. So it was a weird, kind of uneven experience for me. But in the end, I did like the total package.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's on Amazon Prime streaming. And I also watched Beautiful Boy.
Ooh, tell us about that. That was very dramatic, right?
Is that the one you thought I was going to say?
I thought, honestly, you were to go into Survivor drama because I know you've been watching Survivor.
Oh, you want to talk Survivor?
I was just going to say, you were very hesitant to go deep on basketball. And
yeah, I'm trying to be restrained a little bit, you know?
I mean, that's fine.
The Survivors, it's been a great season, one of the modern classics. The editing has been very balanced. Every player left. Now we just had the merge. There's 12 players left. All of them have had plenty of screen time to fully understand their character. Basically, everyone has interesting interpersonal dynamics. I've really enjoyed this season. It's like a return to form after a few seasons that weren't that great, a little hit or miss. But anyways, Beautiful Boy is a little more concerning to our potential audience here. It is kind of an Oscar contender. It's the Steve Carell and Timothée Chalamet crystal methamphetamine drama. It's based on the real-life memoirs of a father and son, where the son was addicted to meth for like his entire adult life, and the father is trying to help him and just going through his experiences. It's a good movie. It's a good character drama, but it's not great. I had some gripes with like the actual like camera work. It was very basic. They didn't do anything all that interesting. Really, the whole movie is a vehicle for these performances between Carell and Chalamet. And they deliver. They deliver in spades because they're both excellent. I expect each of them to get an Oscar nom. Probably Carell for the lead and Chalamet for the supporting actor. But they're just awesome every time. It's not even like they're chewing scenery. Every time they're on camera, they just own the characters that they're playing, and it's really nice to see that. And so it elevates a story that it's not that it's a boring story. It's an interesting story, and it's deeply personal, but it lacks some of the Hollywoodness because of that, because real life isn't Hollywood. So it's kind of funny to complain about that. But anyways, it's a good movie. It's getting a limited release, but it's an Amazon production, so it'll be on Amazon Prime very soon. They usually do like a couple months for their movies in theaters and then put them right on there. So I recommend it if you're interested in, if it does garner a lot of Oscar buzz and you want to be part of the conversation, then I recommend checking it out.
I saw a trailer and it looked really good, honestly.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's got those high octane drama moments, and it just lacks some of those punches home that you need, you know?
Yeah.
But what can you do? So, do you have any other stuff you've been watching, or are we ready to move to our next segment?
I don't have anything that I've been watching, but I have, I've been playing some D&D. Just thought I'd mention that. I normally run a campaign, and you're in it, but
yeah, I am good and plenty.
One of my buddies reached out and said he wants to run some online, and I jumped in that, and it's been fun.
Yeah. Do you enjoy? Because before you were the DM of our campaign, I was the DM and you were the player. Do you enjoy the online playing experience as much as the in-person? Like, is it removed, like too removed, or does it still feel like that kinetic? And
the main difference is you're going to run into, unless you know everyone, is that at the table around here you kind of can vet everyone, and you know them. Your friends you're inviting over. This one, it's been vetted by our DM. But so it's like I know one of the other players and I know the DM, but everyone else is new to me. So it's like making new friends, kind of. It's a little, you're learning stuff. But what's kind of cool about that is I'm learning their characters first more than them.
So you're gonna think that they are the half-orc barbarians that they play.
Yeah, exactly. But no. So it's fun. But I just wanted to say. That's because some of my week went to that this past week, and it's a good time, man. I mean,
I'm glad to hear it.
It's fun to both play and DM.
Yeah, you get both sides of the coin.
It's true. It's a beautiful coin.
Well, speaking of coins, this next podcast idea is going to make us rich. That's right, folks. It's time for the 90. Max, what do we do every week on the 90?
Well, we are close to 100%, which means...
Yeah.
On the 90, we pitch our next podcast ideas.
That's right. Toss up 90 seconds on the clock. Each week we alternate. One person gets that full 90 to talk about the idea of what we're going to do next. If we don't have a good idea by the time we get to 100, it's all done and we're irrelevant again. Anyways, Max, it's your turn on the 90. You have a tough act to follow from the Quatch Watch last week. But throw that 90 seconds on the clock, and you know what? The mic is yours.
All right, and I'm starting now. Let me ask you a question. Who's America's sweetheart? Is it Sandra Bullock? Is it Sally Field? No, it's Country Boys. So for this next podcast, I'm pitching The Undiscovered Country Boy. Me and Scott, we throw on our flannel shirts, our cowboy hats, some boots, and some tight denim, and we learn how to be real official country boys. Now, I know you're thinking that sounds a little silly, like, why do we got to be country boys? But like I said, America loves them, and they have their boyish charm, their smiles that make the girls go crazy. You know what they say, Scott? Country girls make do. So we got to be country boys. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go through a training system. Where we start with the basics. We start only listening to Garth Brooks. We move out from there. We learn how to make hay bales. You got to know how to make hay bales, We trade in our cars for pickup trucks. And we find the biggest damn belt buckles we can. And week by week, we will become more country. And then after, we reach a certain point, we need to go blend. We need to go and hit up some country boy bars. You know what I'm saying? Get our dip on, chew some tobacco, and just make do, just like the country boys do. So that is The Undiscovered Country Boy.
All right, and that's the 90. It's a good 90-second pitch, Max.
I think so too.
I love the image of us as country boys, and admittedly, it will be a little easier for me. I am white, so that helps.
And you're country strong.
And I am country strong, and that don't hurt either. As I was saying, I already have this beautiful southern drawl in my voice.
It's true.
Just toss a piece of wheat in our mouths and we'll be fine, I guess, right?
Yeah, man, that's what I'm thinking, dude.
So when we go live among the wolves, what determines our success as country boys? Being accepted?
Yeah, being accepted as one of them, All
right.
It's like investigative journalism. We'll have to be there on the spot, We'll have to be there.
Country podcast.
Yeah. It's how you do it, man.
Yeah. Hey, that's the undiscovered country boy. Is that right?
Yeah.
the UCB.
The Undiscovered Country Boy.
Another good entry on the Piper, which is filling up fast.
You just gotta wonder, are country boys better at maybe catching Sasquatch?
Do you think their like country know-how helps?
Yeah, definitely. Country know-how. That's a good one.
Thank you. That would be a good name for the podcast, Becoming a country boy, we know how. Country know-how.
That could be like the podcast that analyzes our process in becoming country boys.
Yeah, like the meta podcast that came out like after Serial.
Yeah. Like
all those like deeper dive ones cashing in. We're going to have copycats cashing in on us. One could argue that that Mad Max Fury Road is full of a few country boys.
I was going to say some country boys and some war boys.
War boys.
What a day. What a lovely day.
Very good, Max. Let's hear that lovely podcast synopsis.
Movie synopsis?
Yeah.
In a post-apocalyptic wasteland, a woman rebels against a tyrannical ruler in search of her homeland with the aid of a group of female prisoners, a psychotic worshiper, and a drifter named Max.
No, I think anybody who's listening has probably at least heard of and know quite a bit about Mad Max Fury Road. It's one of the most successful modern blockbusters from like a critical standpoint. It obviously did very well at the box office too, but it had like 10 Oscar nominations and it was the movie of the summer. It was the film of the summer, I would say. Yeah. It came out, when did it come out?
2015.
May 15th of 2015. Yeah. So it kicked them off right. And I'm glad we picked it, like for the reasons we mentioned earlier. What's interesting is this is very much like of an archetype of a movie I wouldn't enjoy very much, but it's just so well made that I really love it.
Yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying since it's like a big action film, but there's so much thought that's in this one, man, that it's like...
Yeah, it's anything but mindless.
Yeah, exactly. It's a very well thought out film. There's so much intention in it. It's to me, it's and obviously this is very much like a movie that I love no matter what, but it's all the things I like about movies like in one film.
Oh,
so
yeah, I mean the acting's great, the writing's great, the visuals are just stunning. Yeah. The sound is really good. What I like is like there's a lot of like, I don't even know if you'd call it like heavy metal, but there's a lot of like metal inspiration, at least with the music and sound effects, at least of like the War Boys and Joe's group. And it didn't give me a headache. Normally it like instantly, if I hear anything that's like too much, my head is like, this is not going to work. But in here it wasn't too much. And that's because it like fits the theme and the setting so well.
Well, it's an interesting take, the music specifically too, because it has a very tribal feel, but like not in a way that's like ripping off actual human tribes that exist. It's like taking this chrome metal concept and turning that into an organic version of what that would turn into with tribalism.
Yeah, for
and so
sure.
It has this very natural feel to it, but it's also like cool, crazy feel at the same time.
Yeah, it definitely has cool, crazy. I'm curious if did any of this world, like the Immortan Joe's like empire here, did any of that exist in the prior Mad Max movies? I know literally nothing about them.
Okay, so I'll do a quick breakdown on some Mad Max films here, just so you can have some reference. We start off with the original Mad Max film, which does mention that there is, it's just called Mad Max, and I think it was 1979. They do mention that it's kind of a dystopian world. He is Max Rokitansky is a cop, and it's just set a few years from now with society about to collapse, basically. And he's a married dude. He has a kid, and he runs into a motorcycle gang, and it's pretty much a movie of him kind of battling this motorcycle gang. It's a good one. It's a little different than what everyone thinks of with Mad Max. It's a little more simple. I believe George Miller got the idea after working as an EMT and just seeing like people messed up from accidents all the time. So it's cool. It's very like I said, it's simple, but it's fun. It's a good action film. Then you have The Road Warrior, Mad Max 2, The Road Warrior. That one, it's definitely set in the apocalypse. It's a desert landscape. It deals with, the fuel shortages and kind of helping. Like Max wanders into a situation that is going on. He does this thing and then he wanders on out, which is kind of like the quintessential, I guess, Max story now is what they've made that into. And then there's Beyond Thunderdome, which is the third one. And that one is very high concept, post-apocalyptic. Because the one before, it's just kind of people in survival gear that they've made. But by the time it's Thunderdome, it's almost like the fantastical elements have been brought in. So it's a little more out there, basically. And in that one, it deals with some fuel stuff, and it kind of deals with power within a city. So with these films, there is definitely a path from dystopia to like post-apocalyptic. And by the time we reached Fury Road, it's definitely set deep within a world where everything is gone.
Essentially all organic society is gone, and it's you picture, when you think of like a post-apocalyptic scenario, you picture like in the world of maybe Fallout, the video game, like mutated people and mutated animals and just like total nutcases. And this movie has that in spades, but there's also within that, I guess, some normal folks like Furiosa. It's Charlize Theron's character, the main character, really, I guess, other than Max, depending on how you look at it. But her whole goal is to get the wives of this kind of like god emperor type person in the wasteland here to this other area, like these green fields, this supposed like utopia where she grew up. So it's like there's at least ideas of this like real life culture still out there, but it's all gone though. Yeah, and it's a really interesting world because there is still like a weird hope to it all. And I think part of that is because like water is so important. And so like water, I always like associate with life and things like that. So it feels a little bit hopeful. And by the end, you definitely get there more. But I don't know. It's like, it's easy to make a post-apocalyptic movie overly negative too. And this really isn't. But it's also kind of within this big macro level world. It's kind of a micro story within it. Like it's not that the scale is small, but it is really about a specific set of people and how they react to this situation.
Yeah, it's true. Because I mean, there's a lot in this film that when it begins, like society is set in this film. That's what's interesting, because a lot of post-apocalyptic movies have it where society has crumbled and it's still in a state of decay. And this is almost like taking what happens after that when somebody grabs the reins again, So it definitely sets in this very like set way where Immortan Joe, he begins the film by opening the water and lets all the peasants around his castle basically get just enough water where they'll still stay around, like serving his needs however he needs them, So it's very much like this weird feudal metalhead masochistic like macho world here that they've created, and we get brought into it by Max just getting overtaken on the road there, and getting turned into a like literal blood bag.
Yeah, so after he's captured by, I would assume it was war boys. I assume that all the like soldiers and stuff in this world are considered war boys. That's their title, maybe. After he's captured, he wakes up in he's going to be a juice box for someone, and I don't know I don't know what their medical reason for it was, but he is hooked up to Nicholas Holt's character Nux.
They explain it in the movie.
Give him life. I don't remember
at one point they refer to him as a universal blood donor. So basically, and then later on, Nux explains that he has his two buds, like Larry and Barry or whatever. He's basically poisoned. I mean, he's cancered or radiated, and he's dying. So while his body's decaying, he gets fresh blood from a universal donor who isn't dying, and it just keeps him going. Gotcha. That's really the gist of it. And it's oversimplified science, but it checks out enough where the casual person watching it isn't going to really like think about it too much. You know, it fits within the dialogue.
I never needed to care and be like, well, why was he a blood?
Yeah, exactly.
Because it creates these really interesting moments, because right as all this is happening, at the same time, Furiosa is supposed to be leading this trip to, it was either like the bullet farmer, or there was a specific place she was going out with the water that she had, and I think she was trading. But what she actually does is kidnaps the wives of Immortan Joe, who's
She frees them.
She frees. Okay, I'm sorry. Kidnap isn't the right word, because it isn't. There's no like antagonistic nature to it. It is freeing them. My bad. That was the wrong choice of words. But so there's like, what was there, 5 or 6 like young, beautiful women who were basically being held to be bred by Immortan Joe to get him a suitable heir, because I believe Rictus Erectus, was he one of the sons, or was he just... he's
one of his sons.
And he's just like a humongous like sack of no brain.
Yeah, he's pretty much an idiot, but he is like huge and strong. And then you have your smarter one, who is literally just like a sack of a head and some small parts. He's a very small actor, basically. So
it creates very strange visuals.
Yeah, but it definitely gets across the point that Immortan Joe does have 2 sons. Neither one of them are what he wants, so he wants more fresh, pure children.
Yes, and one of his wives is pregnant, played the splendid Engarad. I don't know how to pronounce it. Engarad, maybe, but she's played by Rosie Huntington Whiteley, who everybody should know from Transformers, Dark of the Moon.
I do want to also say that there was a second pregnant wife played by Abby Lee, but I didn't even notice it until this time. She just mentions it towards the end. But the whole point of that was because she's like, I'm going to give birth to my own little monster like that guy. Yeah. And one of the Volvani says, well, you could have a daughter. So it goes back to the thing you were saying about hope, about, hoping for better in this film still. So,
yeah, which is, it is an interesting, like kind of thread of the plot, this like kind of hopeful nature in a post-apocalyptic movie. I feel like I'm trying to think of other, like examples of post-apocalyptic movies. There's of course Waterworld.
I've watched quite a few. Obviously we recently watched Snowpiercer. And that one, the very, very end of it does kind of leave you with a tiny bit of hope.
But it's not like...
but it's not built into it,
that whole movie's kind of beating you down.
And then you have more...
There's stuff like the Book of Eli.
Yeah, and there's stuff like The Road, where it's like, it is just depressing,
So it is an interesting like duality between a situation that is like... the worst thing that could happen.
The ones I think of that have more positive outcomes, usually it's still kind of like a hang up. Like Children of Men is very much on the cusp of being post-apocalyptic, dystopian,
near apocalyptic.
But it ends on a positive note at the end, and it feels worth the journey. And then there's a couple other things. There's comedy zombie movies like Shaun of the Dead where they do it, but I've seen a couple indie like post-apocalyptic movies where they kind of leave with a more positive note. Like I think one's called The Way We Live Now, maybe, with Saoirse Ronan, and then there was also a mumblecore one I saw that was kind of positive in the end too. But for the most part, they're movies that
regardless, it creates a nice little duality.
This one uses all the conventions that all those post-apocalyptic movies that beat you down use, but it like you said, it's not that, Yeah. And it's so colorful.
Oh my gosh, thank you.
It's so colorful.
It's action movies as they try to be, I think, feel like more quote unquote grounded and realistic. They end up being all brown and gray, and that's basically it.
Yeah.
But Mad Max, which has every excuse to be like the color of dirt and mud because society is gone, it couldn't be more colorful. Yeah. It's almost like a Technicolor, dazzling, fantastic display. Whenever the war boys are out charging to go get the wives back, there's just like red and yellow explosions of fireworks going on. There's a guy like in a girdle being suspended above a car playing the guitar. Like there's all this crazy stuff, like both in the actual physical colors, but then in like the character design and the makeup and stuff. Like it's just, it creates memorable characters. Like that guy who's suspended playing the guitar, everybody knows what you're talking about that's seen that movie. And then you have like the war boys spraying the silver chrome on their mouths and stuff like that as part of their like pseudo religious, what's the word I'm looking for?
Like a ceremony,
like martyrism. Yeah, like it's ceremonial, and it's just like it's so cool and unique, and it's so different than anything else that you see. And it's so like right as you're watching the movie, even during the opening scenes with like Max getting like blown up, it's these fiery red and orange explosions. Like there's nothing. They're not cutting away from this action. It's you see these cars careening off each other and creating these vivid explosions. It's lovely.
Yeah, and I mean you still get little hints of green from the plants that we see that Immortan Joe has access to.
His terrarium.
Yeah, and so it's there's a lot of like saturation to it, I guess is the best way to say it. Very saturated, which is funny because George Miller's first thought was he wanted to make a black and white movie. And because we had kind of talked about this off the mic, but no, so his original idea was he's going to make a black and white Mad Max movie. I think his original pitch for this was set to be with Mel Gibson around 2003. But old Melly Gibbs was big on doing The Passion of the Christ at the time, so he would not sign on to a Mad Max film. So
a very different movie.
Yeah, and so it got shelved for a little bit, and then when George Miller was really leaning in on doing it, I guess he approached Tom Hardy by that point, and then Tom approached Mel Gibson to make sure he was like cool with it. And Mel was obviously. So I mean, with this,
and then after the movie came out, they released a special edition that was, I believe, it's called like the Black and Chrome edition. Yeah. That is black and white, and I feel like there might have been some other changes to it as well, but I don't know.
They took out the dialogue and it's just music, I believe, is what it is.
Okay, that'll do it.
So it's...
Is there subtitles?
I don't know, but I know it's supposed to be like a silent film and that there isn't spoken dialogue, but... Yeah,
that's interesting. That is different enough that I actually would be interested in watching it, but like, I love the color and the bombasticness of the visuals of this movie, but I can't personally see a black and white version like being better. I think if he was going through with it as a black and white movie, he would have filmed it totally differently, though. So, like from the start, I feel like he would have.
Because, well, the thing with it is a lot of, I mean, for black and white filming, it would be based on the lighting a lot, and the lighting in here is very well done. So I could see it where it's kind of designed for both.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting enough concept that I would check out that black and white version.
I think this is just
I almost bought it.
A fan-made thing that I just sent you, by the way, but I sent a little link on iPhone. But it's just the movie trailer in black and white, it looks like. But it looks good.
Yeah. Yeah. That was the runner-up for a birthday gift for you last year. Another movie we talked about was the winner. I got you the Criterion Collection of Pan's Labyrinth.
Another prime example of things that just makes Max love movies.
There you go. Max, the Max Tyrion collection. Yeah. That worked. That actually fit.
Yeah, it wasn't too bad.
Yeah. What I like about this movie too is the pacing is really good. And I feel like every movie that is like about cars in some sort, like has to do some type of interesting thing with pacing, because it's so easy to make it 100% pedal to the metal, frantic. But this movie does a good job of like ramping you up and ramping you up quick in some scenarios, and then having good long set pieces that aren't just constant sensory overload. Within those long, like 10, 15-minute sequences, there are still like individual sequences within them that keep the thing moving without being like too overwhelming. And then it does have those moments where it takes the break that you need, you know, while you're pumping the gas. Yeah. So it's not like you're on the edge of your seat for the entirety of the movie, but you are very much so on the edge of your seat for the moments where it wants you to be. It has a very tight handle on the pacing.
There's so many car movies where you want, I didn't even say you want, but let's just take another car movie as an example. Let's take Gone in 60 Seconds.
Love it.
That was one of the slowest paced car movies I've ever seen.
Well, it is a car movie, but I still think that's not appropriate to call, because there's one car chase in the whole movie.
Yeah, I mean, it's sold as a car movie is the thing.
Yeah. But that is a failure of filmmaking, if we're being really honest. But it fails utterly at like keeping you engaged by like using the momentum of the plot and stuff like that. Yeah.
And then also we could do Getaway.
Yeah. Of course. Yeah. Getaway tries to be this like, it tries to do this because he's supposed to stay in the car the whole time, right? Isn't that like one of the posits of the movie?
Probably.
I don't even fucking remember, man. But and so it has this like constant quote unquote action, but it's really dull, and it's lulls. It doesn't do anything interesting. It doesn't build Ethan Hawke's character. It doesn't build Selena Gomez's character. Yeah. And then the action also just sucks. In this movie, the action's stellar. Yeah, that's very true. And in this one, I mean, there's not a lot of spoken dialogue overall. Yeah. But you understand these characters so much, man. Yeah, you could totally understand the motivations and the like active feelings happening, reacting to moments in the movie. Yeah. The one thing that I didn't really fully get, and I don't know if this is from not having any background on the Max character, but he's such like a loner and a drifter, other than like just seeing the desperation of the women and stuff like that. I didn't get why he was like so fully committed to helping them. At first it began, I mean, I'm guessing you picked this up in the movie. It started with him just needing to escape, basically, you know, so they made that pretty clear. But then it became for me, what it felt like was the kind of PTSD he was going through from losing whoever, because who they showed, the little girl that's like talking to him, they make it seem like he, sometime between the last movie and this movie, or some point since everything's gone to shit, he's tried to start again and have another family, because I think he had a son, and that very much looked like a daughter, I think. I would agree. But so they're kind of making this scenario where it's like, I think he's kind of tapping into, I guess, those fatherly feelings. Not even fatherly. It's just like he knows the people behind them like are terrible, and he isn't. And so while he's kind of, in the beginning of the film, he's very much become like a creature of the wasteland himself, long-haired, eating two-headed lizards, you know, just being kind of a mad, insane dude. Like they keep referring to him as having high-octane blood. So like he's just kind of out there. And I mean, he is pretty reluctant to help them at key points where it's, at first it's like, well, I'm just going to work with them so that I can escape. And then I think when she says, what is it? She's like, I need you on this, fool. Like, I need you to help me. And in the part with the porcupine guys, I forget what they're called, but the like biker gang that they were supposed to have a deal with, and then it fell through. Yeah. So there he kind of leans in a bit more, but it's still mostly like survival. And then when he sees how screwed they are, he's like, you know, she's like, there's a bike for you, and I'm out of here, man. And it's like that memory of the child is kind of bringing him back. And I think it's kind of like a fight for humanity on his part, you know? I mean, that's really all the main thing I get from it, is he can either decide to be heartless and kind of a marauder, or he can be decent.
But he's not going to stick around either way. You know, he's going to tumble on. He's like the cowboy coming in.
Yeah. And for me, the thing was like towards that character motivation, because they do like tease you with little things like that, with like the flashbacks to his daughter / feminine son. But he did have that out after they had reached their destination basically, and it wasn't the luscious greens they were expecting. It was this like abandoned swampland basically, and the green place wasn't a habitable place. And that's when he had an out there. He was going to stay behind, but then he joined them and they returned to the Citadel. And that moment I didn't get fully enough buy-in. And part of that's because the Max character is kind of purposefully, maybe a blank slate's not the right word, but he's purposely like, his emotions and his reactions are very like muted and dulled from probably at this point it'd be many years in the wasteland.
Yeah.
And tragedy has passed probably. And so that's part of the character. But I didn't fully like grasp that, like buy back into society. And then at the end of the movie, they do make it back to the Citadel, and he just walks away again.
Yeah, that's Max, man. He just takes. He's a wanderer. He's a wanderer, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the big thing with it is it's not really his battle. He's gonna help them out.
Yeah.
But like it's almost like he gets that, you know? I don't know if that makes sense, but yeah. It's
makes enough
he's
sense.
not trying to necessarily die for them, but he's going to do the right thing. But I think he also kind of feels a kindred spirit with Furiosa a lot, which is kind of evidenced by him giving blood for her voluntarily, which is another big thing in this film. Is, I mean, it's so much about humans aren't property. We're not things, and
yeah, that's definitely one of the themes throughout.
And so he's as used as they are is one key thing. I mean, we should really acknowledge there. He's been turned to a fucking blood bag. So I think that's kind of a big key thing there. And then
his introduction to the action is he was mounted in front of Nux's car as they were driving into this battle, and he escaped that situation and kept going. But like, that's how much of a thing he was.
Yeah, and so exactly.
Just put it on the hood of your car.
He's property, and that's a big thing in this movie is that humans aren't property, and so that's like a key thing that definitely drives him. Is he was in the same boat as them, whether or not he wants to acknowledge it.
True. No, that's a good
and
point.
then I think the other point is kind of reinforcing what I was saying about him kind of reclaiming his humanity. Is he never once says his name until that very moment where he gives his blood voluntarily, and then says, "I'm Max." My name's Max. And so up until that point, we know that he's Max. But
because who else could he
be? But then it's him rediscovering that he's Max. So it's almost like him going from being a feral creature to him being human.
I like that. I like that, Max.
I like that.
You're good, man.
I gotta represent for my boy Max Rakatansky.
This really is, besides the title and everything, though, it's Furiosa's movie.
Oh yeah, for sure. No doubt.
Like, Max is the titular character, and he's the leading male, but it's Furiosa's story. She has the most profound, like, emotional journey and everything. And apparently the sequel, the original title for the next movie coming after Mad Max Fury Road was going to be Mad Max Furiosa.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that later on, that sequel, because it may not happen. But it deserves to happen because there's great characters here. Yeah, and it's a cool world. Furiosa, she's super interesting, man. I mean, she she drives the action. She's very emotive, even though she's kind of like a hard ass at the same time. But she's not. Yeah, that's a tough line to walk for an actress and a character, but they do a good job. And I mean, there's moments where like Charlize Theron emotes so much with her face, where I'm just like, this is why you're considered a really good performer. Because sometimes she gets shoehorned into roles that aren't the best, and then sometimes she's in these amazing roles, and this one definitely, really shows her skills. For sure. And this definitely, like, she was definitely on the map already, but this put her more towards the center of the map. Is that where you want to be on a map? I don't even know, man.
mean, obviously, like, yeah, she had won awards before and stuff, but she's done her fair share of like any kind of movie. So,
I'm a bit astonished that she didn't even get nominated for like best supporting actress. Yeah. And she's not supporting, but they could have used the whole, well, it's Max and stuff and made her the nominee there. You see that sometimes when they're trying to get like a more likely win or something like that. Yeah. But, I mean, she didn't get nominated at all. So
it's wild because like, and she's so damn good in this, you know. Mm-hmm. That scene when she I was talking to you about it, when she's just overwhelmed when she discovers the green place is gone and she just kind of stumbles off and falls to her knees. It's amazing, man. It's awesome.
For sure. And we were talking about how they have that cool thing that I feel like you see it in movies more than anything, but like where it's like a sand dune and there's breezes of sand blowing over the sand, and it's like, why just some sand?
No, I've seen that cool. At the beach, and it's crazy at the beach.
Yeah, it's very cool. So they did that there too, which added to that visual.
Yeah.
You know what's crazy, considering that this movie made 154 million domestic for a 380 million worldwide total.
What's that?
It didn't even win its opening weekend.
What?
It made 45.4 million. And it was beat handily by Pitch Perfect 2, which made 69.2 million that year.
I saw the first Pitch Perfect, and I liked it, but I don't think I've seen any of the other ones.
Well, they made a third one, didn't they, like this past year?
Yeah, they did.
I haven't seen any of them, but I feel like I would like them, because I'm such a musical guy. Age of Ultron was also in theaters, so it was week 3, and it made 38.8 mil. So, and I don't actually remember. They had a pretty decent marketing campaign for Mad Max Fury Road, but I don't remember there being like. Maybe it's just because I wasn't personally familiar with Mad Max, but I didn't see it as this like I gotta see this in theaters Thursday night kind of movie where compared to like a Marvel movie, and that's probably because I didn't have familiarity with the prior movies.
Yeah, for me, I was there opening weekend. I was like, hell yeah.
Yeah. I think I might have ended up seeing it within a couple weeks of its release. But I mean,
there was that immediate buzz around it, so I could see you just being like, okay, I'll go check that out. I mean, people are saying it's good.
Yeah, okay. Well, I wish that I would have the opportunity to see another Mad Max movie in theaters, but there is there's a lawsuit from George Miller's production company against Warner Brothers because per George Miller, so all of this is like allegedly, but allegedly George Miller and his company were owed an extra $7 million bonus for the work on Mad Max Fury Road. That might have been from certain like an incentive based thing, like if it makes X money, if it gets these Oscar nominations or award nominations or anything like that. I don't know how these contracts are formed, but Warner Brothers is claiming that they didn't owe him that bonus, and George Miller is claiming that, yeah, you did. And George Miller, I believe last week I read a quote where he said that the sequel to Fury Road is officially like on the back burner now because obviously he can't make it. Warner Brothers owns the rights to the franchise, and he can't make it without that being worked out. But when he wrote the initial script, they had enough story material for 2 more movies. Or when he wrote the initial story, he had enough material for like 2 additional films.
Yeah, they had a lot there. It's a damn shame because, I mean, just the reaction to it, you'd think both sides would want to make it work.
Yeah, I mean, Warner Brothers very much made money on it, so it seems like something that you'd want to make work, but. I don't really know. I don't know any of the personal details like involved with the story other than the kind of that headline level. And you always hear about like skeezy stuff in Hollywood, but specifically with Hollywood accounting, I believe Lord of the Rings as a series, it is claimed that it didn't make money, which is insane. But because of Hollywood accounting, and I don't even know how they're able to fudge the numbers like that, but they are basically able to fudge the numbers. So who knows how this is going to work out. But Mad Max Fury Road came out in 2015. When did Beyond Thunderdome come out?
Beyond Thunderdome was out in...
Was that 80s? 90s?
It's either late 80s or early... It's 1985. Yeah.
1985. Yeah. So, I mean, we were looking at 30 years between movies there. I don't know that George Miller's going to have another 30 years to wait for another movie.
Let's hope not.
Yeah. Hopefully it doesn't have to be that long, but it does suck that that's holding it up, because it really is. This is what blockbuster movies should search to be. They should want to be this level of depth while still delivering all the thrills and stuff you want from that bombastic summer blockbuster.
Yeah, I mean, it's it tells a story.
It's elevated.
It has a theme. It has plenty of themes to it. You know, it has a meaning and stuff like that, and it's fun. It's fun to watch. Like,
yeah.
I mean, there's even moments that are funny, which you don't expect to find comedy in a film like this. But there's moments that are genuinely funny, even with the bad guys. When when they decide to come back and take the Citadel for their own, and they finally show Immortan Joe's folks, but they're just sitting around waiting because there's nothing else to do.
Yeah.
And for some reason this time around, that just made me laugh. They're just like, all right, we're just gonna sit here, and then they're like, hey, there they are. And it's just like any other movie would have them scouting, doing other stuff, like doing something dumb. Yeah. This is realistic. It's a hot effing desert. They're just gonna sit there and wait because it's less energy. I mean, it wastes less energy basically. But the fact they're just sitting there like you would be like fishing or something, it just made me laugh a lot. But yeah, there's moments of levity that still work.
Yeah, there's a weird amount of physical humor in that. The designs of some of the characters are just insane. Yeah. And like seeing the war boys like jumping off their rigs and stuff is at times comical. Yeah. Not in like a detracting way, like in an intended way, but like when they're spraying the paint on their mouths and like screaming, there's like both kind of a disturbing nature to it, and there is a very funny nature to it. It's not body horror by any means, but like some of the character designs have some very sickening like dysmorphic bodies and stuff like that. Yeah. Like it was hard for me at first watching it, like, because this movie doesn't give you, it's not like there's like 20 minutes at the start that kind of sets the stage. You're right into it right away. And as that opening scene with Max like running from the war boys that are hooking him up to the blood bag happens, you just see this insane world. And when I watched it again this time, even knowing the world that I was in, it was still like a little jarring, because like, oh yeah, this is what this is. Yeah.
And I mean, it's knowing it going in, like you can kind of identify once again that Immortan Joe views all these people as his things, basically. So you have women that are there for milk. You have these war boys who are there as his weapons, basically. You know, there's just so much of it that's just based around that. And they show him getting his armor put together where as they're putting on him, he's like disgusting. A boiled body with hanging flesh.
They were powdering his body to be able to have the armor put on.
And there's so much grossness to it, but you see that he's rotten. You know, he's rotten literally, physically. And what he's wearing is garb, like a hard shell to make him strong. It's all a fucking illusion, which is amazing. I mean, it's such a good way to do a bad guy in a movie, especially an action movie, because you know nothing about him other than he sees people as things and he will kill to get his things back, and he rapes these girls like to get sons, basically. And it's all you need to know that this guy's the worst, but he is charismatic still. And it's not like you like him, but when he's on the screen, you can recognize he has like gusto to him.
Yeah, you can see how a young version of this Immortan Joe character would have been able to ascend to this insane throne that he has. Yeah. Because he does have that weird, like, charismatic energy to him where he's releasing the water to the people and they're all like, seemingly they're all praising him. They're thanking him for it. And I mean, it reminds me a bit of like a Kim Jong-un situation.
Yeah, it's very dictatory, very cult of personality.
Yeah, cult of personality. That's a great way to put it.
And it's crazy because just by that polarity, like we automatically like and trust Furiosa once we realize what she's doing, you know, and with the wives, obviously, like we're just like, yeah, they need to get free. It's just
they need to be kidnapped.
It's very smart filmmaking. Very well thought out, like we said, and apparently they had like tons of footage to work through. And the editor said, I think it took them months just to watch every single take they had.
Yeah.
It's wild, man.
It's wild. I feel like that'd be a fun job, but I don't actually know if it is.
Well, there was big news today that Avengers 4 is sitting at like 3 hours in runtime at the moment, but it's November and the movie doesn't come out till the summer, so that's going to change for sure. But
and Disney doesn't want to release a 3 hour.
No. They'll stop at 2:55 before they hit 3 hours. But no, I mean, but a lot of people online were like 3 hours, this and that. It's like, okay, guys, chill. It's going to change, but. Them saying that is basically saying like they have a big story to tell and they're going to work their way into it. And this is a tight 2 hours, almost like total runtime.
It's like 121 minutes.
And that's including opening and ending credits. That's like beginning to end. Yeah. So you got to think of actual. So
it's like 110 minutes.
Yeah, of story. It's a little tighter, but I mean, there's not a moment where I get bored in this film.
Yeah, it's definitely a like the showcase for the less is more philosophy in that you don't need they could have put another action sequence in there, like in the swamp, have a creature in there that they were fighting or something like that if they wanted that sequence, but no, less is more. With the storytelling, we don't need that a 5-minute like narrated this is the wasteland, the world of immortal. They don't need that. We'll pick up on what we need to, but we don't need this extraneous information spoon-fed.
And what they do fine. It's Max saying my world is chrome and fire and all that, and like it the way they do it actually is just the perfect amount. It's crazy, man.
Yeah, they don't need like an Anderson Cooper like telecast.
Yeah.
And some movies can do that well, like Children of Men. Is a movie we reference all the time for doing things well, but they start with that, like, I think he's watching the TV in the coffee shop and is talking about the youngest boy on earth and all that, and it's perfect, like it sets the stage, but that fits that movie. And a less skillfully crafted movie here would have tried to paint the picture in a much clearer way and waste time. And in a movie that's about spending the time right and going fast and you need to go fast and going slow and you need to go slow, it's just such a smart choice not to add 15 minutes to your runtime, and that's pretty wasteful.
Yeah. So. Yeah, and I mean with the exposition in this film, like they really do show don't tell very well in this. So instead of fully saying, like you said, there's no big narration saying the world of Immortan Joe is cruel. They show you that, like you said, and the War Boys, they show that they're like dedicated cultists, basically. Nobody says War Boys. They'll kill themselves for Immortan Joe. Like it's so easy to come up with bad dialogue for this film because there's not much that I can think of that sticks out.
Because the bad dialogue is so wildly different than what we actually get.
Yeah. It's like just
like it's so much worse.
Just drop the most basic exposition you can think of instead, and that's how a shitty action movie would do it,
For sure. But this is a good action movie. And it had a good budget, $150 million, and it uses it well because there's practical effects throughout.
I think I heard there's 2,000 total, like at least 2,000 and some change special effects in general. And I think I saw with that stat that 80% were practical based, like based in practical effect. So
and I think something like 400 or 500 War Boys died in the making of the movie, but gosh, it was good.
Well, a lot of Canon, I think it's 5D Mark IIIs died, which is a type of camera, but it's basically more what I use in my job, and they have the fancy big ass cameras that cost more than my house filming the main stuff. But all the car shots where cars getting destroyed and you see it inside the car, like they just had cameras, like really nice cameras in there, and they would just get destroyed.
It's crazy that they didn't recover them from those explosions.
Yeah. Well, there's ways to get the data out of there. You know what I'm saying?
Nice. Is this your favorite of the Mad Max series?
Yes, definitely. Which is funny.
Is this your favorite George Miller movie?
I think so, because when I look at his, his resume, this is really my forte. I never saw Happy Feet though.
What about? I mean, Babe Pig in the City.
Yeah, his resume is interesting, dude.
It is an interesting resume for sure. He wrote the original Babe, but he didn't direct it, and then he wrote and directed Babe, Pig in the City. Lorenzo's Oil, I feel like, is like it's either a romance, like a family drama, basically, but it looks very generic. I've heard of it, though, so I wonder if it was at least well regarded. And then like the Happy Feet series and the Mad Max series, none of those you would expect to be on the same person's IMDb page.
Yeah, it's a very, very strange resume once again.
Yeah, but it works, man.
I guess, I mean, by the 90s, he was probably making so much like Mad Max. We just talked about the other day, like residuals and monies off of just like further things. You know, he's the writer. He's writer director.
I like the writer.
He's the writer. But yeah, since he's, you know, top dog, like he's obviously still getting stuff from that. So he probably didn't really have to do anything else if he didn't want to.
Yeah. But
no, just looking at it, man, it's interesting. I've been thinking about watching Dead Calm, which he produced, but I haven't seen it. I'm
not familiar with that.
It's like
one.
Sam Neill, Nicole Kidman, and Billy Zane. It's like a 1989 film.
Did you make it with that leading three?
Right. It's like pick three people, Max.
Like Billy Zane.
But yes, yeah.
And two others.
So your friend Billy Zane, he's a cool guy. No, I mean this is I love all the Mad Max films. Beyond Thunderdome's kind of shitty in certain ways because I think he quit or got kicked off of it.
Yeah, I was just looking at the IMDb page of it, and it lists him as a co-director.
Yeah, so I think like halfway through there was some drama, and he ended up leaving the film, like differences of opinion and stuff like that. But
yeah.
So
the IMDb says that he lost interest in the project after his friend and producer Byron Kennedy was killed in a helicopter crash while location scouting. And so Miller only directed the action scenes, and George Ogilvy handled everything
Which
else.
The action scenes are very good, and it's just kind of there's some. It's a flawed film. That's what it is. But if you're a Mad Max fan, like I am, like it's a good.
It's still working for you.
And it has this amazing song by Tina Turner, called "We Don't Need Another Hero."
God, that's like one of the last musicians I would expect to do like an original song for a Mad
she's
Max
in
movie.
the movie, man.
Oh yeah.
She plays
Never mind.
She plays Auntie Entity.
Auntie Entity. Oh. Well, too bad she didn't make the cut for Mad Max Fury Road.
True. But it makes sense within the context of the film. Why not? Yeah. So, you know what I'm saying?
Sure. Max, you got any other thoughts?
Just that I freaking love this movie, man. I'm glad it won. I'm glad I get to talk about it. It's
you weren't mad at all.
I was not mad. It was one of those movies where if I didn't watch it at like 10 p.m. at night the first time I saw it, I probably would have bought a second ticket just to watch it again. And every time I watch it, I'm just
well, yeah, you're definitely jazzed once you finish this movie.
And dude, I do want to talk about one thing actually. One more shot, a couple shots here. When they're going up in the lift after dropping down a Morton Joe's body, and it's cutting between Furiosa, like looking, you know, like she's just had one hell of a day, and then Max just disappearing in the crowd. Like that's just beautiful cinema. Yeah, I love that he just disappears in the crowd. Like the music's just like going ham. He's just going away, like looking, speaking to her with his eyes, and her one eye's open. Yeah, like that's just good shit. That's another less is more scenario. Where they don't need dialogue really there. And the score was done, by the way, by Junkie XL. I know he did 300, right? He's done quite a bit. He did Deadpool. Okay, yeah. Of course, he did The Dark Tower, as we all know. Obviously. But no, I think this is definitely his most notable work. But in the 2010s here, he's done quite a bit of scores. So if you look up his list, there's definitely some movies you've seen in there. Yeah. But yeah, so I mean, my thoughts are just this is a great movie, and I will continue to watch it as much as I can. Yeah, I think I'll rewatch it again pretty soon too, because it's good, and I don't think I missed anything in my like semi-sleepy state, but it's still a good enough excuse to watch it very soon again. Yeah, I mean, wake up to it every day, man. Hell, dude, that's a way to start. That's a way to live your life right there.
Max, where can the good people find us?
You can find us at the Gates of Valhalla.
Yeah.
Or you can find us at thecriticalbreakdown.com. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. We're on Instagram. You can email us at podcast@thecriticalbreakdown.com. You can find me looking for The Green Place. Or you can find me at Max Rivera Film on Twitter.
You can find me living, dying, living again on Instagram at breakdown_Scott. Or you can find me on Letterboxd, where I'm reviewing the movies I see, all the damn time at Stenin 2.
You guys can witness him there.
Yeah. Jason Brown did our music.
Josh Rivera did our artwork.
And Walter is the podcast war boy.
I've definitely witnessed him pooping. Next week on The Critical Breakdown. Well, you're in for a treat, my friend.
Oh, God, is it the Babadook?
It's the Babadook.
Fuck me.